What's going on, everyone? It's your boy here with a review of a few holiday movies that hit the different streaming services this Christmas 2020. First off, we're going to be spoiler heavy, okay? If you haven't seen these movies, do not watch this video because we're going to talk about a lot of things that went on during the movie. Spoilers, you've been warned. So today, we're going to talk about Soul and Wonder Woman 84. Let's start with Soul. Alright, on Christmas Day 2020, Disney Plus dropped Pixar's Soul, the newest feature, and I really dug it, man. You know, like, I was looking forward to it from when they first announced it. I was gonna go see it in the theater, but, 2020 happened, and I think it was in the theater, but, I wanted to watch it from the safety of my house. The movie starts off with the main character, Joe Gardner, and you root early for him. Jamie Foxx was the voice. You root early for him. He seems like a good guy. You could tell through the way they show him playing, his love of music, and as a music fan, I could definitely relate to that. First off, the movie visually looked outstanding, okay? It was just the way they animated things, the way they animated The Great Beyond, the way they animated New York City. I've never been to New York, but I've seen enough movies about it where you can kind of get a look of, an idealized New York City. From when they even showed like the leaves falling on the ground, the sky, the buildings, each thing had rich textures and details. That was pretty awesome. The music was good. I like jazz. I couldn't name you my favorite jazz musician, but I know when I hear it, certain things I like. There's some stuff in jazz I don't really care for too much. It's a little too intense. But, I would say I do like jazz. I would love to learn more about it. And maybe I'll do that in the future. But, as far as the music in this one goes, I really enjoyed it. It was pretty cool. The one thing I noticed was I didn't feel like there was any real antagonist. I mean, who was the antagonist in this movie? Death? I guess that's the antagonist for us all. But, there was that guy, Terry, who was chasing after Joe and 22, but he wasn't really the bad guy in the movie. He was just a middle management dude doing his job, and I definitely can relate to that. Anyway, but yeah, so the movie didn't really have an antagonist other than, was the antagonist himself? Like, he was keeping himself back? Revelation, right here on camera. Anyway, so I think maybe the antagonist was himself and him holding him back and, self-doubt. We'll get to that in a minute. But the second half of the movie, so we get to the first half of the movie. Joe Gardner, musician, middle school teacher, he gets the break of a lifetime, and then he breaks himself by falling down a manhole. And he doesn't want to go. He doesn't feel like it's his time, so he tries to get back to his body, which is in a coma, I guess. And we get to the second act where he does get back to his body. Now, he and the little soul that doesn't want to be part of Earth, 22, they, get switched around, and suddenly Joe's in the body of a cat, and 22's in his body. Now, having watched Brave, I felt like this was going to be one of those situations where, the trailer makes you think it's one movie and it's the other. Because when I watched Brave, from the trailer, I thought it was going to be an action-adventure about an independent spirit doing her thing, playing by her own rules. And then the second half of the movie should have been called My Mother the Bear. Because, the mom turned into a bear is a whole different movie than what I thought it would be. I don't know about you guys. It seemed like they took, for that movie, two concepts and merged them together into a somewhat tasty sandwich. But not delicious. Just, it's tasty. And I thought this was going to be the case with that. I thought we're going to have a second half of the movie that I'm going to start calling in my head, I'm a cat now. I'm a jazz cat now. Oh, Aristocats. Anyway, so it thankfully wasn't like that. They had the second act where, 22's learning life and blah, blah, blah. This happens and, Joe's a cat. My favorite sequence, one of my favorite sequences in the movie, but definitely in the second act, was when they go to the barbershop. And they showed, the rich environment and camaraderie that is a barbershop in the neighborhood. I know going to a few barbershops back in the day, not so much now, but, you know, I do all this myself. But, like, yeah, back in the day, going to the barbershops, it was always an adventure. You never know what kind of crazy characters you're going to get in there. And this was no different. The barber was actually a really good character. And, you know, the main character, Joe, he got to learn that there was life beyond what he could just see in front of him. Just like, I need to be a jazz musician. And, you know, he was ignoring the other people in his life that actually cared, and the people, you know, what they had going on with them. And the Little Soul 22 helped him learn that. So the barbershop sequence is great. Now, the third act, from when they go back to the afterlife or something like that. I know this is spoiler heavy, but I done warned you in the beginning of the video, so if you in this deep by now, let's just keep going. Anyway, the third act, I thought was fantastic. Like, 22 being caught up in self-doubt and depression and all that, and you see all these characters just kind of weighing the soul down, weighing her down, I guess. She was voiced by Tina Fey, and weighing her down and getting her from where she needed to be. As a person who's struggled with lifelong depression, I definitely related to that sequence. I definitely saw that, you know, that's kind of what it feels like sometimes. It kind of feels like other people's, it looks like other people, but it's really your voice that's holding you down. And believe me, that's something I struggle with a lot. So that sequence kind of got to me a little bit, gave me the feels, as what the kids say. Do they say that anymore? I don't know. Anyway, I'm old. So, yeah, they give him the feels, and yeah, that was a very powerful sequence to me, especially for, I wouldn't say this was like a Pixar kids film, you know, this ain't on par with Cars or nothing like that. This is up there with Up, but we'll get to that later. Anyway, so Joe, looking back on his life after he plays the show of a lifetime, was a great sequence too. You know, he saw the little bits of his life, everything in between, from when you die, from when you're born and you die, and like it's the little moments that make a life worth living. You know, like seeing something beautiful for the first time that you actually take a second to step back on and see it. You know, feeling your toes in the sand, stuff like that. It's different for everyone. You know, cracking open a new book for me. You know, starting a new read, getting to feel the pages. You know, that kind of stuff. That's little things that just make life incredible. It makes life memorable. And we did a whole montage of that while he was playing piano. And, like, I'm not going to lie, I started to tear up a little bit. And, you know, Pixar has that way of doing that with their movies. You know what I mean? They have a way of, like, just bringing it out of you, you know? And because of that, I really enjoyed the third act. I mean, the third act's supposed to be the closer, the one that gets you. First act, you know, catches your interest. Second act keeps it going. And third act, you know, that's the clincher. And that's what it did for me. So I really enjoyed the movie. My favorite characters were Joe, the main character, which is good. You don't want to dislike the main character. Speaking of which, 22 was just okay, you know? I mean, she got us from point A to point B during the plot. But, I don't know. It was just alright. They're going to sell some toys on her and stuff like that, probably. My second favorite character was the drummer, who was a student of Joe's. He was a middle school teacher, and there was one of his former students who always thought he was a great musician. He inspired him. I kind of thought where the movie was going to go was going to be like, oh, he realizes that teaching is his spark, because they kept talking about what's your spark in life. And, you know, teaching was his spark in inspiring people, but it didn't really go that way. Still, I think he kind of had that realization, or we, the audience, had it. But yeah, the drummer, when he was excited and he was like dancing around, you know, when his middle school teacher got the gig, it was cool. The voice of the drummer was Questlove from The Roots, even though he kind of looked like Mega Ran. Anyway, so I really enjoyed this movie. Now, I imagine it'd be a tough sell. You know what I mean? Like Up for Pixar. Like Up. You had a 60, 70-year-old protagonist who's trying to get his house to, I think it was South America or something like that, as an honor of his late wife. I mean, what kid watching that couldn't relate to being an old person losing the love of your life? I mean, as adults, hopefully you live with love in your life, and like I do, and, you know, you could definitely relate to that situation, and it busted you up, made you weep the way it did me. I was in the theater with my 3D glasses, like, oh, I'm about to cry. I was sitting next to my wife, and like, I don't know, it just hit me. Anyway, this had a less impact than that, but like, I definitely got emotional in the third act. Like, I just imagine, like I said, it was a tough sell, like a 40-year-old wannabe jazz musician, and we learned about his life. Yeah, kids are gonna love this. So I mean, they'll sell toys like the souls and stuff like that, I bet. But I really dug it. It sounded like right now that I don't, but like I did. Like Up, not an easy sell. Soul, not an easy sell. And people online are complaining that it's not as good as like a Up or like the other movies that director's directed. But I mean, for Pixar, I don't know if it's going to go in the top tier eventually, but I feel like we need to let it breathe a little bit. You know, it just came out a few days ago, and you're already comparing it to movies that you've had, you know, to look back on in retrospect for a number of years. So I think, given some time, Soul's going to be in that top echelon, you know what I'm saying? I gave it an 8 out of 10. It's 8 out of 10 to me. Could have been... I really enjoyed it. You know, I'd just be nitpicking at anything else that, you know, I point out, like, oh, they didn't do this when I thought they would do that. I mean, I wasn't writing the script. One day, hopefully I'll be a scriptwriter. Anyway, but yeah, so Pixar's Soul is an 8 out of 10. I enjoyed it. Give it a little bit of time and perspective. I think the people who are complaining it's not as great as other Pixar films will probably change their opinion. Let's see. But I really dug it. I wanted to go see it in the theater, like I said. I would have gone see it in the theater had it been a different 2020. I think in the theater it would have been a hit. It's a good family film, even though kids might get bored because there's not a lot of silly slapstick and stuff going on too much. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. Definitely gonna watch it again. 8 out of 10. I dig it. Second movie I watched this holiday season that premiered on HBO Max, as well as the theaters, was Wonder Woman 1984. Now, a little bit about my DC fandom. I like DC. I like the comics. I'm a lifelong comic reader if this is your first time watching one of my videos. Now, as far as characters I like in the DC, Batman's number one. Then, you know, you got Joker, Flash, Swamp Thing, and Green Arrow. I'm low-key an Ollie guy. But Wonder Woman is a cool character, but I can't say I've read too much Wonder Woman. So, I did watch the first movie. The first movie was pretty good. You know, as far as the batch of DC films that they've been putting out, the DCU, that was probably the best one. The villain at the end, Ares, played by, I don't know the actor's name, but Remus Lupin from Harry Potter, left a little bit to be desired for. I didn't think he was that great, especially since he just kind of appeared as the villain and fodder in, from what I remember, like maybe the last 15, 20 minutes of the movie. Otherwise, we had a fish out of water story. You know, so it was pretty good. I'll get to that, you know, mention the fish out of water later. But I enjoyed it. Like I said, Batman vs. Superman could have been so much more. The JLA could have been so much more. And, you know, I'm not even going to get to the whole Snyder Cut nonsense. I'll just wait for that to bomb. Anyway, that said, I do like DC. A little bit more of a Marvel guy, but DC is definitely on my radar. I have read my fair share of DC. I know my stuff. That said, this movie, what the oops, naughty word. What was I watching? What was I watching, this hot piece of garbage? This movie was trash. Like, it reminded me of like a cheesy, like, 90s superhero film, man, where they were like doing a quick cash in and, you know, we're going to have a deal with McDonald's for some Happy Meal toys. And like, it's not that great, but they think it's catered to kids. So who cares what kids like? That kind of 90s Shaq is Steel, Batman credit card nonsense, man. Like the opening sequence, I get 1984 had an Olympics, so we start with an Olympics. And look at Diana Prince as a little kid doing all this crazy stuff, competing with people. And oh, there's Princess Buttercup from the, you know, the Princess Bride. She's back in the movie for a second. And we do all this so she could learn the lesson of not taking, I guess, the easy way out or like cutting corners. You gotta, you know, do the mission to your best. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it seemed like that was going to play a factor, a huge one, since it was the opening sequence of the movie. But it didn't, man. Then we cut to her breaking up something in the Stranger Things mall. At least it looked like the Stranger Things mall. I don't know if it was. But then she's like, it was very cartoony. Is like, I mean, I don't need a grim and gritty Dark Knight Returns for everything, every movie. But I mean, this was like, the guy was literally like, you know, it was like a Scooby-Doo villain was getting fought. And I'll get to that comparison again later. Don't you worry. But, you know, when she's swinging with the rope, it was like a Spider-Man thing. Not even like the Spider-Man now. It was like obvious wire work. And that's going to be a problem throughout the entire movie. Obvious wire work. Tobey Maguire is 84 years old playing a teenager swinging on a vine, on a web, kind of thing. Like, it was like, ooh, like, it was like Mary Poppins style, man. Like, come on, make it look a little bit better like that. The best thing about that sequence was like the adorable little kid that got thrown in the stuffed animal. But other than that, like, she used her tiara as a boomerang because she didn't want people to know who she was. And we forget about that later on in the movie. Because, you know, I'll get there. Okay, then we go with Kristen Wiig. You know, when they first cast Gilly as the bad guy, I was like, ugh. And then I saw her in the movie. And I was like, ugh. You know, it seemed like at first she's playing the same exact character from the Ghostbusters. You know, this kind of lady who talks like this, kind of under breath. And yeah, then this people don't notice me. It's the same character, except for instead of busting ghosts, she was beating up people and going crazy real quick. You know, crazy with power. And, you know, that pales in comparison to Gal Gadot's acting. Like, okay, in the first movie, we get that fish out of water story that I mentioned literally a minute or two ago. And we get that, you know, she's from Themyscira, I think it's called. And, you know, they don't know the customs of, you know, England, America, whatever, the mainland. And, you know, so we get like a sequence where she doesn't know what to do with her dress. And, you know, she doesn't know this custom or she doesn't know what this is. But at this point, she's been living in our world for like, what, 50, 60 years, something like that? And she's still this unapproachable and unrelatable. Like, when they were eating dinner, I get it was supposed to be a little bit awkward, but it was like two people reading off a book on how not to talk to each other or relate to each other or seem not robot-like. Because, like, it just seemed like she didn't have any friends, she didn't know how to talk to people, and yet she was somehow a high-up curator in the museum, and she had to talk to people to work her way up to that, right? So, I don't know, man. And, like, you'd think it would got better when she was around someone she was more comfortable around. Like, when she met with, you know, Chris Pine's character, Steve Trevor. And we'll get to him in a second. Don't worry. I know I'm kind of skipping around here, but man, like, even then, it seemed like she didn't know how to talk to him. Like, she's like, yes, you are back. I don't know, like, I mean, she wasn't this bad in the Fast and Furious, right? Right? I don't know. Anyway, so the whole plot is centered around some magic wish-given stone. That, like, you hold it and you wish for something, and then the wish comes and it comes to expense, just like every wishing movie ever. And, you know, the main bad guy is Pedro Pascal from The Mandalorian, and Mando, bruh, this ain't the way. I don't know what movie he was in. Because he was, like, playing it like a 60s Batman villain. Like, don't get me wrong, his performance was Orson Welles compared to Jesse Eisenberg in the other DCU movies, because I don't know what he was thinking or what direction they gave him, but every time he was on the screen, I was like, what the am I watching? You know, but I mean, Mando was like, oh, you know, like cowering and stuff like that, and like 10 seconds later, he's doing some big monologue like he's Imhotep from The Mummy. It was just, I don't know what movie he was in. I mean, like I said, he seemed like he was playing King Tut from the 60s Batman film, or like some other Eggman or somebody like that. Like, I mean, And he basically turned himself into a genie. He turned himself into the genie from Aladdin, and I only say that because at some point at the end, his skin was blue. His skin was genie blue. And he didn't even sing Prince Ali. No, nothing like that. He was just, man. Then we do a little fan service. We get the invisible plane. Invisible plane, part of Wonder Woman lore for a long time. TV show, I think they worked in the Super Friends cartoon. But, okay, I didn't have a problem with the jet. Okay, it goes invisible, that's cool. We've seen it in Wonder Woman stuff. The way she did it, like, you know, Hadouken, and it was like, you know, the plane went invisible. Not the problem. The problem was this dude came back. You know what? This dude came back for no reason. He came back for no reason. I get we wanted Chris Pine back in the movie because he's an actor with some fame, and he was in the last movie. He died, bruh. He died. And the way they brought him back was like, oh, she wished it. And he took possession of some random dude? Or was that guy like a part of the plot? I don't know. He took possession of some dude, and she was cool with that. Like, oh, well, somebody else is dead. But he didn't need to come back. She could have had somebody else, and, like, still, like, that was her love, but she's learning to heal again with somebody new, and, like, it was stupid. It was a stupid way to bring him back for no reason, it seemed like, because they had less chemistry than they did the first movie, I felt like. Maybe that was me. You want to see a good Chris Pine movie, go rent Come Hell or High Water. Rent. Go. How old am I? Yeah, go Netflix or stream or whatever you do. Come Hell or High Water. That was a good movie. I saw that like maybe a year or two ago. And since then, I've been like, oh, that guy's a pretty good actor. Before then, not so much. But yeah, so, okay, the biggest problem I had with the invisible plane, rant ended for that dude. Biggest problem I had with the plane was he was an old school riding in one of those Snoopy Red Baron ass planes. How did he know how to fly this jet? He just, oh yeah, I think I got it. Like, I mean, how? And the plane, which seemed to be in some kind of weird graveyard, plane graveyard, was all fueled up with enough fuel for them to fly to Cairo in one trip and back. Like, hell, my car didn't even get that much gas mileage. You know what I mean? Like, I can, you know, go around, it's whatever, but, like, I ain't driving to Cairo in one trip on one tank of gas, I'll tell you that. Now, halfway through the movie, I had to pause it because I had no idea what was going on in the movie. Like, we had some kind of wishing stone, and then we had the dude turn himself into a genie. They're going all over. The lady who, Kristen Wiig's Barbara, was suddenly getting Wonder Woman's powers because she wished she was like Diana or whatever. Now, all this, they've yet to converge. There was a tank sequence that was okay, I guess. I mean, her flying in the air looks so cheesy because of the wire work. And then she whipped this lasso and caught a bullet. But later on, she can't use the lasso to, you know, do whatever. Like, come on. Can't have it both ways, you know what I mean? Like, anyway, I had to Wikipedia the plot to find out what was going on. That's never a good sign. That is never a good sign for a movie. Like, where you literally have to find out what's going on by looking it up. Now, this came out in the theater. If I was watching the theater, which I was never going to do, you know, this didn't look theater. Like, I'm not going to drop, you know, the however much money theater's going to be nowadays. And back then, it was probably pretty, and back, you know, last year, it was pretty expensive too. Sorry, allergies. But, yeah, so I wasn't going to go see this in the theater, and thankfully I didn't, because I was able to pause it and find out what was going on with the plot. So, at this point, I realized also, we have not seen a lot of Wonder Woman, Diana as Wonder Woman in this movie. This was the problem I had with Iron Man 3 as well. Like, we go to see him in the costume, kicking butt, doing superhero stuff. I don't want to see the intrigue of Tony Stark with his PSD and PTSD and, like, stuff like that. And, like, you know, I want to see him in the costume. You know, he spent 80% of that Iron Man 3 outside of that costume. I don't know why people are like, it's such a great movie. It ain't. It definitely ain't a Christmas movie either. I don't care whatever Shane Black does. Anyway, so she wasn't in Wonder Woman costume a lot. If I had known that cheesy mall sequence was going to be the last time we see her in the costume until the third act of the film, I'd definitely be disappointed. And I was disappointed. So, you know, Kristen Wiig finally becomes the cheetah, even though she seemed kind of leopardish or tigerish, like not really cheetah-like. For why? For why? She just wanted to be an apex predator. You know, like, you had the powers and stuff. Did you really need more? Like, I get that the cheetah looked cheetah-ish in the comics and in the cartoons. But this looked ridiculous. This was some over CGI BS. Now, I love Black Panther. That was a great movie. But in the third act, when Killmonger fought T'Challa, and they're going down this, like, cave or whatever to, like, the subway, that looked over CGI too. And this was worse than that. You know what I mean? This looked like some Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. He's on top of the goblin. It's all rubber-limbed BS, man. It's 2020. You could do better. And I've seen better. Like, the wire work in this entire movie was ridiculous. Like, you could see the wires practically. It was holding them up. The acting was horrible. The action was alright. But, like, the villains were horrible. It was a train wreck that you stop and stare at, and then another train crashes right into that wreck. Like, how'd y'all not see this coming? You know, like, when she flew, it reminded me of when Peter Pan, Robin Williams flew in Hook in 1991, and it looked more convincing in that movie. Let me tell you, because she's practically like, oh, I'm sailing on a cloud. And then she whips a lightning bolt to get more momentum. She wasn't really flying. She was just kind of falling with style. Or like, you know, like, she was kind of like skipping on clouds. I mean, the first time she got up in the air, she whipped the thing in the air. We didn't see her catch a lightning bolt. So what the hell was she flying on? What the hell was she using for momentum? Hopes and dreams? I don't know. Bet you don't know either. Anyway, the flying looked horrible. They should have just left that damn thing out of the whole movie. But then they decided, you know what, we're all in on the flying. Then we're going to have her put on some outfit that makes her look like a Power Rangers villain. The dude who looked like a demon, I wasn't a big Power Rangers guy, who looked like a demon who was with Rita Repulsa. Y'all know who I'm talking about, right? Anyway, she looked like that. She had the wings and the helmet and like... Then, like... Okay, so we have problems here, numerous. Then we get to the end of the movie, and it leaves us with more questions about stuff we've seen, because it's a prequel to the Justice League. So how does she seemingly keep her identity a secret when she lassos that dude, she lassos Mando, and then tells him all this monologue about, you know, hopes, dreams, peace, renounce your wish, which is a stupid thing. Like, you could just renounce your wish anytime. And then it's gone. So the amulet is constantly listening to you. That was dumb. Like, how did she keep her identity a secret if the whole world heard her voice, seemingly? And, you know, somebody's recording this, and that the news, everyone said didn't go and try to find who was that mystery voice. They was just like, oh, somebody saved the world, and don't tell me they forgot about it, because that, no way. That was something that would have changed the world. And they just decided, oh, you know, it was a good omen. Now, sometimes, I've been reading reviews, and some people were like, oh, it's supposed to be cheesy on purpose. And it's supposed to be like an 80s cheesy movie like Superman where he fought the nuclear dude, or where Richard Pryor was the bad guy. Nah, I ain't buying that. I ain't buying that. If it was, then it would have been more slapstick. But it wasn't. It was just bad. DC fanboys, y'all kidding yourselves, right? Let's be real. So this movie, I feel like if it had to go... I know it went to the theater, and I know that's their excuse of like, oh, because the COVID in 2020, it's not going to do well in the theater, but it wouldn't have done well. It would have made money, but it would have been as poorly reviewed as the Justice League and BVS, Batman vs. Superman. It would have flopped, man, to me. I mean, it was just all over the place. It was stupid. It was boring. This was a 2 out of 10 for me. If I see it again, it'll be just to make fun of it. You know, I should do like a whole podcast riff tracks thing on it, because it was that bad. Like, I just did not enjoy it at all. You know, the director, she did better with the first movie. Everybody did better with the first movie. Like, it was more interesting. It was just off the rails train wreck to me. I'm glad I watched it at home, where I could pause it and find out what the hell was happening. You know, at the end, the bad guy rescued his son, who looked totally unbelievable as his son. I don't know. It was just, whew. Another good one for DC. Great track record. I don't know. They can only get better, right? So, 2 out of 10. Did not enjoy it. Coming back with some final thoughts for both movies. A lot of people said this is going to be the death of the movie theater, with releasing movies via streaming. But, I mean, in the case of Wonder Woman, I think they did that to kind of cover their bases. You know what I mean? They knew what they had. Soul, Disney did that probably and didn't have you pay a premium like they did Mulan. I'm guessing because there was a lot of backlash. I still ain't seen the live action Mulan. I ain't paying extra. I'll wait however long before they put it on the service for the price I'm paying for it. Yeah. But, I mean, I was fine seeing these in the theater. I miss going to the movies like crazy. I love going to the movie popcorn. Me and my wife, that's our thing. We go to movies, you know, just chill, have a good time. We love going to the movies. I miss going to the movies immensely. That said, I'm not going to risk my life going to the movies to sit next to a bunch of coughing strangers that will freak me out and give me a panic attack. So seeing it at home was great. These are big movies that are going to be tent poles for the holiday season, I think, or the summer season. I forgot when it was supposed to come out. But yeah, I did enjoy that they were on the streaming services. I looked forward to watching them. Soul more than Wonder Woman. But I did enjoy watching them both in the comfort of my own home, safe and sound. Especially on the Christmas day. You know, I got to relax, you know, after cooking Christmas dinner and all that, watch a flick. But I think they're going to start rolling out other movies later on. You know, I don't think this is going to be the standard. I know, you know, HBO Max didn't get a bunch of movies from Warner Brothers. And that's cool. But I don't think every movie studio is going to do that. Movies will come back one day and I'll be back in the theater enjoying that extra buttery popcorn. That said, I did have fun watching these with my wife. We had fun looking at how bad Wonder Woman was. We enjoyed Soul straight up. And yeah, it was a good time. Thank you for watching these reviews. If this is your first time watching the channel, or if you're a regular watcher, please like and subscribe down here. Any subscription, any like, any, you know, share, whatever you can do, help get the word out about the channel is much appreciated. Hit that bell notification that's somewhere around here in the corners. And if you like comic books, if you like food reviews, you know, this is the channel for you. Stick with us. We got a lot of cool stuff coming up down the road. Thank you for watching. Later.